with?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't do that. Look, I have a job. I need to use my hands and my arms.
I gotta be cognitive when I go to work. I can't be non-cognitive every day.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming.
Can you shut the door?
We got Sir Brehon. I'm Sir Sūn Jiāng. And we're going to talk about great weapon stuff. So this is not like base level, but we're going to cover some of those basic things because it's been a couple years and we'll maybe used them, and so we want to make sure you understand things. We're going to talk about different type of equipment, as well as when we start moving into the actual techniques of things, the approach to the problems that each of us might face in our form factor. He's a bigger guy, and I am a smaller guy. He is also not SCA extra large. I am SCA extra small, right? So, but it works. It still works pretty well. So if you guys have questions, feel free to ask. I've got a QR code here. I cut a bunch of little mini QR codes, but I don't know where they went to. But you can actually pull up the presentation on here. At the end of it, there's a bunch of videos, links to stuff that I would encourage you to go watch. They are not of me, they're not of him. They're of dukes that are really good at stuff like great weapons. So, and also some other references. So that's what we're gonna do. Okay. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask that. So basic ABC stuff. 1 1/4 weapons. Sorry, I'll tell you again. 1 1/4. One thing I've noticed, people's thrusting tips are underbuilt. There's a lot of thrusting tips I've seen on great weapons for people that are like maybe they're 1 inch. They're supposed to be 1.5 inches. Look, we don't want to break our toys, and the thrust is a very mechanically advantaged weapon strike, so make sure it's safe. Thanks. Anything else?
Yeah.
ABCs?
When you put the tip on, make sure because you're talking the thrusting and striking weapon, don't have it rip off.
Right. Make sure it's securely attached.
Yeah. Because I noticed you haven't put it on for a while.
There's some good cues for how you can tape them up to the thrusting tip. You will have more torque on the thrusting tip on a two-handed weapon, so making sure it's well affixed will save you a lot of repair time in the long term.
Yeah. Gauntlets. So we are aware that gauntlets are very important to us because we have to have them to go fight, but we're also aware that gauntlets vary in price dramatically. I've got almost all of my gauntlets I still have. I use these in our loaner kit. These are my first gauntlets right here. These are lacrosse gloves inside of a wax-hardened leather. I would take a shot with these right now, today. They have all sorts of stuff on them that I've done to make it safe for me. This little thing here is ugly as hell, but it protects my thumb from getting jammed. So when you get gauntlets, you can choose to cheap out on it. You're just making a choice. I did a quick search, and Vocalo makes some gauntlets for under $200. They will do just fine.
Yeah, and I would say, if you're gonna spend any money on your kit, other than the bare minimum, gauntlets is where you're gonna wanna put your money. You need the hand motility, you need the protection. If you've known anybody that's been fighting a great weapon for a long time, they're gonna have hand injuries because it is the area, you're blocking out with your hands. So spending some money now is gonna save you in the long term, because all of us who've done it for a while, have banged up thumbs and broken hands and all that. So don't skimp on it. I mean, you can make some pretty safe stuff out of cheap material, but if you're gonna be doing great weapon for a long time, you'll generally see the people that do that have put the money into a pair of gauntlets that give them the mobility they need and the protection. And that's the key. You gotta have both.
Most likely, especially if you're buying the middle lower range price range, you're gonna have to do modifications to it.
Yep.
Ones that come to mind are the Trinity Arms ones. They're full gauntlets. They look pretty great. They're kind of big. They actually don't work great for great weapon because this cutout on theirs is like way out here, and so you can't actually move your hand on them very well. These are Sir Eggs gauntlets, which he doesn't make anymore, but they're sometimes around still. They did fine. They're plastic gauntlets, but they're fine.
Want to show the thumb real quick?
So the thumb on these ones, I replaced this bone similar to that one. This is not the way it comes. They actually have a single flexible point thumb, and it's not safe.
Show them the inside too. You'll notice what and it's mine too. The idea is to get that contact with the hard point of the thumb length on the rattan, because you will, again, it's gonna get broken otherwise.
This one's a better example, you can see it, the rivet's looser, so it does have more, it has some movement there. You will have to make a choice about how you wanna use them with the weapon. I like a more mobile thumb than I currently have here, that's why I got these gauntlets. You can't, I mean, if you can get it as cute, great, these are Kyle Harris. They're spring steel, these are lighter than those. And
Fully encapsulated thumb.
very mobile and stuff, I'm very safe with these, so, and they're not overly expensive, I see, they're under 500 now, I think still, but good luck on that Q's, they're real good, so people are on it.
And I guess we didn't talk about this beforehand, but I would say in general, the people that I know that fight great weapon in the SCA don't do finger gauntlets. You can get really, really good finger gauntlets, but the clams give you the motility you need and the protection, so it seems to be the sweet spot. Again, you may, I have seen people who have tried to get it done. The problem is generally the really good finger gauntlets don't have quite enough motility and find like moving the thumb and moving the fingers around. And we kind of talked about this a little bit. It's a sweet spot between protection and finger mobility. And everybody has that line where they find that's comfort for them is correct. You're gonna have to play with it a bit. I tend to have my fingers float a bit. I like to be able to have my fingertips and palms touch the rattan. Some people don't mind that. It just kind of depends how you play the game.
Watch finger gauntlets, the base side that's the half gauntlet needs to be oversized to protect the fingers.
Yeah.
And they almost never are.
Typically,
Almost never go out.
the bigger problem with the finger gauntlets is either they just have plates on the top and they don't ground,
No.
which is gonna be life.
Yep.
Or if you get the ones that do ground, then your hands, you can't do this with your hands are like this,
Right.
because the plates don't go together far than that.
Yeah.
So, you gotta choose, that's fine. But you're gonna get hit in the hands, you're being fast, you've read that. Also, hockey gloves, so I played hockey in college. Hockey gloves are not meant to protect your hands from an actual shot. The back is, but your fingers, hockey players break their hands all the time. So if you do hockey gloves, cool, put something else on them. These are lacrosse gloves in here. And this is not super thick wax leather, but that disperses the impact enough so that they are still safe and they still ground. I know people like to drone about it, like, oh, I'm fine. Cool, okay, good for you. Don't confuse luck with statistics and skill. Footwear. I know a lot of people fight in like work boots. I don't know what the hell you're doing. You're doing a sport, wear sport shoes. Like you can do what you want to, but you wear sport shoes. These are combat boots, but they're mini mill, so they are barefoot shoes. Right? Brehon,
I'm not wearing my fighting shoes today, but I will generally fight boots with a little bit more flexible sole. Part of the reason is, and if any of you have done like the previous class, they probably noticed a lot of the sword manual stuff. They're doing a lot of feet bending and stuff, and so some of the period movement, the feet mobility you get from a more period shoe allows you to more of the period movements. If you're gonna go with a thick sole because you have to, just realize some of those movements are not gonna be as comfortable. You're gonna be tending to be more heel rather than ball.
Yeah.
If you get hobnails, they're nice.
Yeah.
So the typical complaint I hear is people like, oh, I got steel-toed shoes, I've only couple steps in my feet. I will tell you the truth is, if you are fighting properly, your feet are not flat, the toes are curled in, you are grabbing the ground. Right? So the steel toe's not protecting you, your feet are balled up in a fist anyhow, so you should be okay. If your toes are not engaged, you're flat-footed, you're gonna get killed anyhow, so don't even bother. Folds are the hip protection, and spalders, you choose. I don't wear spalders, I have before, but I just don't right now. Typically it's because with the helmet, my head is big enough that they don't actually hit much of my shoulders. But I do wear folds because getting hit in the hip hurts a lot, and then you can't move and you die faster. But again, everyone has their own different levels.
Do you like football undergarments?
I wear, these are actually lacrosse, I think. I've got hex pad type stuff underneath here.
Yeah, you can see my kit when we get armored up and for the next class, but I do have pauldrons, and I do have band braces, and I have greaves too. Now my rule of thumb is anywhere that's not protected by fat or muscle, I'm gonna have something hard or soft. And I find the way I fight polearm, which is a little different than Sir Jiāng, I get hit in the forearms a fair bit because I'm breaking into the melee, and I'm hitting shields, and so I find this area especially having reasonably good protection is awesome. I don't have any other leg protection. If I get hit hit there. It's gonna hurt, but it doesn't happen often enough. I tend to go sports kit, because I find the mobility benefits me more than the extra armor and the weight and the slowness, because I'm already slow.
Real quick on weapons, so we've got a bunch of ones, different type of weapons. There's a ton here. We'll talk about this one shortly because it's hilarious. In its own way. How many of you have been hit by my football?
Not yet.
Was it a good shot?
It's an odd shot.
Right? So this is a yoga ball. It's a yoga block, like a spiral yoga block that is so shaped down. We don't have to, like, it's got a little plaque on the tip because it's the smallest impact spot, but like people go, ugh, right? Other weapons are going to be harder. You've got split rattan. If you laminate something, like this one is laminated, it's a half piece of rattan here. There's got to be foam in between that. I like lighter weapons. Brehon's weapons are heavier than mine.
Probably twice the weight.
Right, but still, about twice the weight.
Pass it around here.
That's,
Where's your favorite one?
let's go to the one. It might be twice the weight, alright.
Here, pass this around. So this is my thug stick. You can tell it's super ugly, and that's a shape of which is really actually much prettier than mine. I'm a little jealous.
I'm about the pretty. You got shaped heads versus just rattan. So mine's a shaped head. That one's just a stick of rattan. Both work just fine. There would be examples in period of both types. So
Depends really what you want to do.
Yeah.
So if I went with a lighter stick, like Sir Jiāng has, it would break for one more frequently because it's a lighter, drier stick rattan. Also, it's more flexible, and since I tend to do a lot of percussive shots, I'm gonna have to give it more room for it to be good. If I was more of a spear fighter, I would want a lighter stick because that would tend to benefit that type of game more.
I am more of a snap. I whip it and I'll snap it into a shot as opposed to trying to just drive it through.
Yeah.
My longsword, on the other hand, is like the same weight as that spear, it might be heavier, and that one is much more percussive. I actually don't want it to flex. I want it to strike and hit. Other people, one of the videos I have is Duke Mark of the West, and his weapons are very whippy because that's how he fights. It's very fast. He does lots of chemo stuff. So it's that type of technique. The length of the cutting surface will vary.
That's a long
That's a
one,
long
yeah,
one.
yeah.
But you can see this one, that's the striking head. That's about the same size as the shaped one over there. This one is significantly longer. They all have different advantages and disadvantages. Something I told someone a while ago, they were fighting with they were doing a tournament, it was with Warhammer, I don't know, they were like a 7-foot hammer, with a little tiny hammerhead. I'm like, look, if you're in a tournament, half for the win, and then head for the kill. You go, clunk, oh, don't take that. Because that's what you're gonna do, you're gonna miss half the time. So if you're using axes or mauls or maces like that, a lot of times you're gonna end up hitting the haft on them first, and they go, huh? And then you gotta kill them. So don't just be apologetic, just say, oh, sorry, don't take that personally. And then having a butt spike or not, that's up to you. I have personal rules about butt spikes. I will only let someone take a butt spike to the face, neck, armpits, or groin, because I have
Somewhere soft.
literally hit somebody with this pommel,
Don't do that.
which is a pipe cap. I got stuck in someone's night chain, and I was trying to drop a shot in, and I just went on a swing set into their chest like 3 times. Like, and they're not wearing any armor; they were just doing soft kit. And they're like, "That's not illegal. You don't have a butt spike." I'm like, "I know. I'm sorry. I didn't try to. It just happened."
And I don't use a butt spike not because they're not effective. They are a good low option shot. We'll kind of get into the psychology of that later. But I just find it hard to justify because the way I throw a thrust is off the butt of the polearm. And if it was a spike, I would hit my hand. So I'm like, I just won't do it. Plus, it's not super carried for the time that I'm shooting for.
And I thrust differently. We'll get to that.
Exactly.
Any quick questions on weapon stuff? All of the shaped weapons here are almost all like foam. Like I found like kneeling blocks. Like you go to Harbor Freight, get a kneeling block. And they're the right width already. You just cut it to the shape you want and stick it on there. So that works really well.
The taped on stick, did you have foam in there or not?
This one?
Yeah.
No, this is not a hit. This is not for real. This is for
Okay.
demonstration of
Bad.
our bad rule set.
Thank you.
Which is going to get us to the next thing. So we've got Duke Tiernan here demonstrating some basic physics here. He's got a whippy, this is a Warhammer, where it is bending significantly, and he will throw this shot and basically ends here, and the weapon keeps going around the block, and he would hit people 3 people deep. Like he'd aim for true and just go like this, and the first guy's like, I got it blocked, I'm great. I got it blocked too, and then that guy threw it. So, so there's that. Here's the problem with our rules. Weapon limit is 6 pounds. This guy right here is 5 pounds.
Pass that one
I will
around.
pass this around. This is one of my raw-hided one-handed swords taped onto a 2x4 of rattan, which I can flex if I do a full lean on it. So feel free to decide if you want to be hit by that. My answer is no.
Take the sword out, you tape it.
Still. So I did some quick physics for this. I took a college baseball player's bat swing for my baseline. We would all feel pretty unhappy if we got hit by that, so that's a good measure. So baseball players, 30-ounce bat swings at roughly 70 miles an hour. That is a 31 meters per second strike. And that hits for 26 newtons of force. If we move that up to a 3-pound weapon, which is most of mine are around 3 pounds, those are hitting at that same speed for 35 newtons of force. So now we have some math measures to think about it. The 6-pound weapon, moving at that same speed, hits for 70 pounds of Newton force. Okay, that's simple math. We can sort of figure that out. You swing the same thing heavier to hit harder. Here's the problem. If I was saying my baseline is that 35 newtons of force, that's a good strike. For me to do that same thing with a 6-pound weapon, the control factor is a lot more. So with a 6-pound weapon, it's only 12 meters per second of speed to get that same impact. What I'm getting at is you have to be so strong to control this shot to make it land the right amount. What happens typically is people get weapons that are really heavy and they swing and they're over swinging and they are bludgeoning people. This is why no one wants to play with you at practice.
Overswinging could also make you hurt yourself.
There's that
Good
too.
point.
Well, I know at home, when I practice at home, I use an unshaved down piece of rattan because it's a little heavier, but I'm sort of chill most part.
Yep.
And- But when I fight in battles, I have my rattan that's shaved down to 1.5 inches, so that it's a little bit lighter so I can swing faster.
Right. It doesn't all come back down to, like, don't break your toys. Right? So if we're swinging these things around like this, nobody wants to play with us. We've got lots of friends, but no one wants to play. So, you know, like, please, if you come at me with that, I'm just gonna walk away from you. Okay, so, real quick story. With a fighter practice, this newer guy comes out, he's fighting with a great axe, and he seems to know what he's doing, and I'm fighting with a long sword. And I'm like, oh, I'll fight with you. And he is swinging heat. So the only way I can deal with heat is bring more heat. So I would just, and he was wearing chainmail, and so I looked at a hard block, ran in, and just drove full body gut shot through him. I have not seen the guy come back, and I feel bad about that. But I can only block that so much until, you know, so if you're doing that type of thing with a great weapon that's really big, you're gonna find people don't want to be your friend. So,
Get yourself calibrated, you know, for your region, and then also get calibrated every time you travel with it, because different regions have different calibration rhythms, right? So you wanna know where that sweet spot is.
yeah. So all the different weapons have different strengths and weaknesses, and these are things that we really have to understand. And it's Sword and Shield has this to a certain extent, where different shield shapes have different strengths and weaknesses, different weapon lengths have different strengths and weaknesses, but they're not as exaggerated as they are with a great weapon. So, with, I'm gonna grab your spear. If Brehon's got his spear there, and I've got my long sword, so if he extends for his range, that's his range, and I might be able to hit his arm if I died. Right? So for me to get in my range, I've got to get here. So what happens is, he has now a range advantage.
But he's slower.
he's a little slower because he has a longer weapon pack. My advantage is my disadvantage is I have to get in, but once I'm in, I have more shots available from here.
Right.
So this is actually a weak spot for this weapon because I'm in between everything,
Yeah, yeah.
right? If I get to here, well now he can just actually grab me, he can actually put the blade over the top of me and decide that I don't get to play anymore. And we're just gonna hug it out, and that's fine.
But I don't wanna stay there for
No.
very long.
Somebody
I
else
either
will
need to
come
kill him or get him back out into my sweet spot, and that's gonna always be my goal, is to get him. If he's here, I'm happy, because he's gotta take at least a half step before he can hit me. I get at least a half step and a half before he's a threat to me. And so it makes me, oh yeah, I'll do this all day, right? 'Cause I can just keep, and if he wants to stay out there and let me poke at him, awesome, because I won the fight out there.
And then you have a medium weapon, so let's say we had a 5-foot spear. You're sort of in the best and worst of all worlds. You can you've got a little more range than this, you don't have as much range as that, you have, so that's a even longer, that's.
Yeah, this is a good example of
Yeah.
again,
So for a long one, if I can get past the tip, he's in trouble.
I'm lost.
As soon as I get to here,
I'm done.
he's gotta have some magic happen, but I have to get past that. Additionally, if he can keep me at range, I have no fight. So, when you decide what weapon you want, what weapon you wanna use, get really good and comfortable with it. I have a ton of weapons, and I can go between them pretty easily because I'm practiced. If you're just starting out, if you don't feel you're really confident, just pick one and get good at it. Don't diversify yet. Because you're gonna get confused. So I have to know what my range is. I know I can't hit from here, but I can hit from here. I also know I have to know how far I gotta go in to get to that spot. You know,
We're gonna get to the kind of going, you're either all or.
Yeah.
Great weapon. It's paper, rock, scissors though, so
Yeah.
if you think about it, there's no ultimate approach, but knowing the strengths and weaknesses of whatever your style is, it matches up to the paper, rock, scissors, the other style, will help you to know which game you gotta play. So if you're playing against a sword and shield as a polearm, you got one approach. If you're fighting against a 7.5-foot polearm and you're fighting with a 6-foot polearm, that's a different game if you're fighting against a 2 weapon. So understanding the strengths and weaknesses lets you know what cards you need to play in that fight.
So I just threw this in there because the general fact is most people don't like great weapon fighting in practices. We don't do it in tournament for a long time. Like in Crown lists, great weapons weren't an option. It was sword and shield, and that was it. It's changing, it's great. We have to keep that moving if we want to be able to do that. We were talking about this with somebody where later on we talk about one of the schools of fighting is scrapping, and I will tell you, we'll do it. There's no new weapons on this. If we're fighting out here, everyone can see what's going on. As soon as we do this, all you're gonna see is this going on, right? And if you're a great weapon fighter, you see that happen, you can actually interpret what's going on and decide what's actually going. The general public, it looks horrible. So it's about appearances and about giving the best quality fight for the people looking. And we'll talk about that more later on in the call set too. Stances.
All right, so there are 3 basic schools of polearm fighting, and there's actually some pretty easy tells. And there are some sub variations, but if you want to grab your pictures. So, and it's an easy tell usually. Pick up a polearm, pick up a 2-handed weapon like this. Get in the stance that you feel comfortable with. If you put your strong leg first, you're a percussive fighter. You're a striker. If you put your weak hand first, weak leg first, you're a spear fighter. It has to do with where you're generating your power. When I'm a lefty, I'm very strong left leg forward. And the reason is, this is my bread and butter shot, right? I'm bringing all the power from my hip, and I'm generating tons of sort of lateral force. Now you show me.
My grip is actually this one for striking because this is how I would do shots.
Yeah.
I'm a
Rower.
right hand?
Funny.
Right hand, whatever. I think it's actually left. Whatever. I'm I'm left hand down. But I also throw off with both feet. So if I'm thrusting, this works great. Striking wise, I'm actually shortening my range, so I change.
But you'll notice people that are doing offhand, this is giving kind of the kinetic impart to the thrust, but most of their control is with their offhand, right? So they're doing this, right? And it's a really easy tell. So if you see someone and you know their foot in this or their hand in this, and they start with their offhand, that's usually a tell they're going to thrust at you. Similarly, if they go with their strong hand forward, they're going to strike, and you can play, again, that paper, rock, scissors of the game, you can basically decide what they're going to do. So if he skewed up on me and he's like, point out offhand, I'm like, oh, well, okay, good. So then I know how to counter that as a thug stick. And if he's going thug stick against you, like, well, I can play that game, it's just a question whether he's stronger and better than me. Now, the last one, I'm not a grapple fighter, because I think it's kind of ugly and you can hurt people, but the good tell is the fighter that does this. As soon as they, because this is legal, right? You can grab half of your opponent's weapon. This is someone that wants to get in there and want to throw and push. It can be very ugly. It's a really cool style, but it's one that you got to be careful with because the audience hates it because it looks weird, and you're gonna have to work on not doing more than incidental combat, right? But it's a valid style. I know some really good fighters that do it. This is a case where looking at game tape on YouTube and such is a great way. Find someone that has your body type, fighting great weapon, and see what at like a Duke level or above, and watch them fight. See what they're doing, see what works for them, and then just kind of emulate it. I kind of equate it to like playing music, even though I don't play music. You know, you have someone that you like the sound of what they do, and you start kind of covering their songs. Copy them, see what works, and then over time you'll develop your own style. But usually, there's reasons that high-level fighters are good at what they do. It's that body type that kind of amplify whatever sort of skill set. So find that and try those things, and you'll eventually find what works best for you.
Yeah. Also, this also changes, like, so if I'm fighting with the axe, for example, or if I'm fighting with a 4-foot axe, I'm not a thrusting threat. I am a grapple. I want to get in here to be effective because I don't have enough range to do anything good.
And no thrusting tip anyway.
Well, yeah, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this sort of goes, everything starts to go together, like, oh, well, I guess I gotta be this type of thing if I want to use an axe. Footwork range, okay.
Yeah. This part?
Sure. So footwork, a lot of my stuff, again, I played hockey, and so a lot of my stuff comes from that because in hockey, if you are off balance, you literally will just fall over. There's nothing you can do to stop it. So it's really be down. I sink my butt into a seated position. It's shoulders, hips, feet. And so you're really squared up and balanced. And so that you can roll forward, or backward and forward, side to side, and you're comfortable. When I see people learning how to do stuff, they're like, oh, I'm gonna go forward. Okay? You've got to be able to be square, so that when you're running backwards, you don't fall over. When we are fighting great weapon, you're gonna be running backwards a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
You wanna grab the sword and shield quick? That's actually a good time
Yeah,
to
Brand.
talk about the running back.
pick up your sword shield. I've got a buckle blade.
Perfect.
Okay, where you gonna put it there?
Polearm fighters have to run faster backwards.
Yeah, no, just go.
Because even in melee, what does this guy need to do when he's fighting a polearm? Run him down, right? So if he comes in, I gotta move back fast. Now straight line, thank you. Straight line is the least good approach, right? Because in a tournament, I'm gonna lose my space. I'm gonna run out of the list. So what you wanna do, and this is where the footwork comes in, let's do it a little slower so I don't step on anybody. Come in, I wanna turn him. You wanna pivot, you wanna corkscrews all the time. One, you don't have a lot of field state to play with. But two, if I'm squared up against him right now, where can I hit him?
Nowhere.
Maybe you can get a poke in. He's probably not gonna fall for that. But if he comes in and I step offline, suddenly I've got that nice pocket of his hip to land a shot on. And so that's where especially as a great weapon, having good footwork is going to balance the scales, because again, if you're fighting me in a tournament, what's your goal?
I'm gonna close, I'm gonna try to get my shield on your weapon, so I can.
You're gonna put your stuff in the lane that I wanna strike you, and you're gonna get in close inside my comfort zone. So footwork is how you counter that advantage. Just shields do have a little bit of an advantage, that they have a greater blocking surface, and we know what he's gonna do, which is he wants to close. And then kind of the range too, I guess.
Yeah, the range thing too. The other thing is, most sword and shield people are quite lazy. They will chase 3 or 4 steps.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then they start like, they're really far. And so you just have to outpace them. Any good sword and shield fighter will chase you to the ends of the earth. Because if they let you reset, suddenly it's back in their game. Because if Brandon is chasing me down, and I'm just like, if he gives up, then I can start to plant, and typically they go, like, if you chase me in 3 steps, I can start doing. I then am back in the game. If he's chasing me, I am disadvantaged. I can't actually broach the space very well. So I have to keep my movement running. And again, with the Erics, the rule for, it says later, the general rule is you can touch the ropes 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
3 times, and then you are out.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're then gaming the system too much.
Yep.
So, if you back yourself into the rope, with the
On the
Eric,
list, so when we're
Sorry.
fighting in a tournament, it's got the outer kind of list, they'll have basically poles with ropes between, and that's the boundary of the tournament field. If you touch it, it stops the fight.
You back
Happens
away.
3 times, they're like, all right, next time, that's a kill.
I think you're fighting on a 10-foot stage.
I've
Okay.
literally
Which-
never seen that, but
Like
that's,
a box.
I can know.
Yeah.
I mean, when I fought in
That's
Merciless
where you shoot.
before times, I had to be real careful of that, because Merciless doesn't have super big lists, and I'm fighting polearm movements, and so I'm having to cut a lot of corners, and I will show you one of my other counters, which is not running backwards, but not everybody has the body type to pull that off. But basically, you basically have, that's why you have to do this corkscrew turns, because if you're chasing me down in a list that this is basically you to me apart, I have nowhere to go, and in 3 steps, I've run out of space. So I've got to have some way to counter that.
and that really comes into knowing your area. With footwork, if you're going into a tournament or even a melee, know what the ground looks like.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know what you're walking on, because you can't look at it when you're playing. So you have to know, like, oh, it's gonna be bumpy. I've got to be really shock absorbing with my steps, or it's kind of slick. I've got to make sure I'm braced properly on my feet so I don't slide out. So that as you're going, like, oh, I'm gonna turn this way. I got to make a cut. If I know it's slippery, I'm not gonna try to make that cut because I'm gonna eat it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying, all right, well, I guess I'm gonna have to like round that out again. And again, the turns are gonna be very much rounded. If you run straight, you're kind of going into the sword and shield playbook because you're staying within their range. If you hook, so if he's got a shield in his left hand, if I turn this way, I'm going into his shot. But if I go this way, his sword has to come a lot farther to try to hit me so I can then block it. Now, there are times to go into the sword, but you gotta figure out when that time is.
That is an analogy for life, I don't know what it is.
Yes.
The range thing is key also, so whether you're fighting great weapon or sword and board, you've still gotta figure out like, where's my range, how do I maintain that, how do I use it? And that can be, so you might be thrusting to try to present range. You might be, like when I thrust, I don't grab here, I typically grab here. So then I'm more in control, I also get a little more block there, but oh, they think they're safe. Surprise! So you're giving that sense of what you want, and you're letting them think they know what they want.
Where would you recommend people to figure out their range? At practice? On a Pell?
Hell. You can figure it out in practice too. I mean,
Hurts more.
it hurts more, yeah.
Yeah, it does.
But that's figuring out what you want, where do you like to fight. If you end up being a sniper from range, well, you've got to be able to keep that deep distance range for you. If for here, I don't wanna be here because this is a weird spot for me. So I have to know, oh, I wanna be here, and if that doesn't happen, if they start coming on me, I gotta breach that whole gap too. So they coming at me, I'm gonna come here
Get inside.
to get to where I wanna be. Cause if I'm here, all their shots are wailing on me.
Mm-hmm.
But from here, their shots have to come a long way to get to me. So that's again, just sort of figuring out what you want from life. And then the fear and deception. So the great weapon thing of fear is we have this big stick that we have to like let people be worried about. So what's he afraid of if I've got this? Right? He's afraid of me getting in there. I'm afraid of him hitting me from there. So we've got both problems. Now here's the thing. So he's on the thrusting point, and I know I gotta worry about that thrusting point. That's a fear I have to deal with. If he goes into his crushing guard like that, I have to now calculate what's he gonna do. Against a sword and shield, you can play this up. Okay, in general, people are not afraid of me because I'm not big, right? But if he's doing a high guard, that one, right there, I am worried about that thing hitting me really hard. Shields will go like this. And they run it blind.
And this is a lie. This is a terrible shot. There's almost nothing you can do from this. It's, you've got maybe 3, right? And the problem is, if he bites and I miss, boom, I'm committed. He is going to take my lunch money.
Yeah.
So, but it's the psychology of it, right? So as a great weapon, you're starting off without something as much to hide behind. So the advantage of the psych game, of getting into your opponent's head, is that you're going to make them give you shots that work. So the scary guard, it's not super effective, is one way to accomplish that. Another way to accomplish it is to
Hit their shield really
oh
hard.
man, yeah, like bam! Because what happens if I hit your shield really hard? What are you gonna do?
Turtle.
You're gonna pull it up just a little bit, right? You're gonna turtle, and you're gonna start thinking about what I want to do to you, not what you want to do to me. And so you'll see me do this a lot in tournaments. I will hit the shield, tap the weapon, maybe throw a throwaway thrust that isn't gonna accomplish anything. Because what it's doing is it's changing your focus from what you wanted to do against me to what, oh man, what is he going to do? And so then you already halfway is won the fight.
So you also take on the shield a bit to make him move the shield.
Yep. It's all the little tricks. And this is the higher level stuff, but this, if you want to be successful with great weapon in a tournament, you're gonna have to play those tricks. Because you have less space to work with in general, the lists are small enough that it's harder to deploy all of your polearm tricks. You've gotta have to give yourself a little bit of a competitive advantage. And part of that is taking them out of their own game. And boop, 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 boop. And oh, why is he doing this? Why is he doing this? Right? Do it smart, right? Another one I have, this is a rainy day shot for us way back there. So are we engaged?
Yes.
Well, you know. 'Cause you're this shot right here. Now, that is a rainy day shot, maybe a 5% chance of hitting. But if I miss with it, I just reset.
Yeah.
And if you get like one person in the tournament with that, and everybody else sees it, how does everybody else open up the tournament against you? Because they're worried, right? They're already on their back foot.
Yeah. You know, slamming or throwing thrust right in the face, just like machine gun, poke, poke, poke. People don't like getting hit with their fist and their shield in the face, so they do this. You know, you throw a couple flat snaps at them, their shield goes up. All of a sudden, they can't see this whole side. You have to use that. Oh, I lost signal.
Just fell asleep?
Yeah.
Fell asleep.
So, and then what was the next one? Was that, footwork?
I think that was all part of it.
It's a dog.
Okay.
It's a dog.
We're getting the 10-minute call, by the way.
These are real good.
Thank you. So what's last?
We'll keep them honest.
Okay, thank you. 10 minutes.
Now we can't, first we printed it off so we can actually look at our list of what
You
things.
forget your passcode.
There you go. All right, targeting strikes. This is, we can do it really quick because we're down to 10 minutes. Look for cuts. This is the same for thrusting and slashing. So, would you mind stepping up real quick? So, we're not actually getting this when it showed up. I needed the person. So, if I'm striking with a polearm, I want places where the thrust or the slash is going to stop. That's a pocket. That's a pocket. That's a pocket. Maybe that's a pocket. Same with a thrust, right? So what you're doing is you're increasing the chance the shot's gonna hit and not skip and stick nice and tight. So if I thrust for here, might glance off. If I thrust for the armpit,
You got it.
it stops it, right? And that's the whole thing about turning your body too, right? So this is a harder shot to land. It's probably gonna glance. But if I step here, suddenly there's all these places where if I thrust or slash, it's got a nice natural body piece to stop. And so that's where targeting is important.
Yeah. So like a flat snap, like in single-handed sword, we're throwing this nice parallel to the ground flat snap, right? Great weapon, the neck, right? So I throw this shot, he dodges. It's gonna still hit him in the face.
Yep.
He dodges the other way. It still hits him in the
Set
face. or the
face.
head. So you get him there. Also, nobody likes that.
Yep.
So very seldom are they gonna say, "Oh, that was light," because they're making a choice, right? So that shot, that hit, go for the kill. Like if you can get the leg, you can get the hip. Get the hip instead. If you can get the arm, you can get the shoulder pull. So instead of hitting this, instead of hitting this, I would hit this, right? Maybe it skips up into his ear, but I'm gonna go for that part there so I get the kill.
Well, that's something you didn't mention, hip and shoulder with great weapon versus sword.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's a
Also,
kill.
yeah, don't get mad if people don't know that rule.
Yeah, it's
Just correct them later on. Like, hey, by the way, you know the death line on your hip is actually like way down here.
Oh.
But no, the booties.
The line is technically from the bottom of your groin across and up. That is it. And then arm is like down to here. It's like short sleeve shirt line, and that's because the idea that a great weapon would crush your body.
Yeah, it's a crushing one.
So
Be single-handed axe too. All right, we should probably jump it.
yeah.
since we're-
Oh, attack and defend. You've only got one stick. So when you are doing stuff, every shot needs to be a defense as well as attack. So if I'm throwing this, I'm very open, but I'm trying to create that range. Range is a defense. Okay, if he's throwing a shot on me, I can do this, and from there, I'm moving into an attack.
Yeah.
You are not going to be able to do attack, defense at the same time until you get much better. So if I throw a shot like this, right, I'm way like exposed. That's not a really good play. But if I throw a shot like this, I can go in here, and as I roll through, I will go like this.
Yeah.
So I'm throwing a shot into a block, so that if I miss my shot, I'm still defended. If I'm throwing at the head, I'm throwing this. My line is really protected if I throw this. If I throw this, I keep my hands up high so that my head is guarded. I'm not going to throw this. Because first of all, I've got little legs, so I'm not going to reach that. I'm going to go with this. So think about, if you're doing pel work, you throw a shot on the pel, like what are you defending? As you land on the pel, stop, look at what you're doing. What's open? Is that something I'm willing to give up? Am I actually vulnerable? If I'm throwing this shot with a leg, I'm safe. Because I am at deep sea range and I'm throwing this shot. They can't reach me. With this one, I'm in range. So I've got to decide, can I still do something about that?
Paper, rock, scissors.
Yep.
All right, we should go to the next one. All right.
Aim strikes, we covered that. Thrusting with, if you decide that thrusting is sort of the thing you're doing, there's a video on here, it's actually of this Sikh martial artist, and it really displays well, like when you're doing a thrust, we think of thrusting like this, right? First of all, this is the correct motion, it's a pull cue. This hand has to be loose. If you drew it rigid, you can't reach as far as this, right? So that, but this hand is not static. It can move. And so you have two axes of aiming. This can corkscrew around blocks. If there's a shield here, as I'm throwing toward the shield, well, that's there. What if I go like this around it? What if I'm like up and under? What if I'm over it? Those are all things, if you're going to be a thrusting great weapon person, you have to be really good about that.
One thing too, just to note, because I recently taught this to a buddy of mine. This, where you don't rotate it, limits your mobility and limits your range. Rotate. Just like an arrow or a bullet, that rotating the thrust bow or an arrow. Rotation gives you control over where the point goes.
Real quick on the butt spike, I got a thing on here is that don't strike with it. People do this all the time. They bring the butt spike up and they just do this. That is not a legal strike. It is rude. Please do not do that. You have to bring it up and then pop them.
Yep.
Right? You can loosen your hand and pop them that way. You can keep them both rigid and drive into it. Again, I only take a butt spike. I would only let someone take a butt spike to this, armpits, groin, because I can't get enough on this unless I turn this thing around and use it like a spear. Right? You probably could.
And I don't use a butt spike.
Right. So if you're a giant guy, you can just go, smash, and do that. Cool. I'll take that. But otherwise, like, you gotta go and like, this is a really effective strike. Because if I'm here and I go like this,
It's hard to
boom, chin.
It's embarrassing and hard to ignore.
Right. And so with this particular weapon, if I was here, oh, that butt spike's not available?
Oh,
Smash.
yeah, right. Notice the cup too, right? Like it's right. It's okay. No, it wasn't the cup. But it was the pocket, right? You hit that pocket of the hip, and it's just gonna stick there.
And I'm on guard still.
Yep. All right.
What do we got?
I think this is the.
Tourney stuff. Know your Eric. Know the tourney rules. Most tourneys have like a 6-foot under rule. Sometimes they don't. So make sure you know that before you go in. I went to Baron's Ball and did not read the instructions, and I brought my pike for whatever reason. So I had an extra thing to bring around just because I was young.
I like your advice about the UDU. So this is something that doesn't just apply to polearm or great weapon. You're gonna get a lot of advice as a fighter. Some of it's gonna apply, and some of it's not gonna apply. If you really want to do a style that's challenging and cool, but maybe a little less sport competitive, that's okay. If it makes you happy and it's within the rules, do it. And you know what? Maybe that person that's telling you that's a crap style that's not going to be competitive is wrong, and you're going to show them that it's because then they're going to be in the tournament, which is the best thing you can do.
Rookie, we got it. We'll get to this in a second. We talked about the ground. Be chivalrous. So, if you're fighting another great weapon and you take their arm, you get to make a choice. I would encourage you to let them keep the arm the first time. If you hit it twice, that's their fault. Okay? And that's because a great weapon fight with one arm looks stupid. It is the worst slap fight you've ever seen. Especially when they've got longer weapons. If you have a good long sword, you can actually I can throw it back with this. So one of my shots would be, if I can do this, I'll do this. Right? But you have to know how to do that, so that's what you gotta build up to. Backup weapon. So in melees, I would encourage having a dagger or an axe or something. I will lose my arm often. I go to that and pull this out of my side pocket, and there I have a thing, and I can easily be effective in some form. They are normally legal in tournaments, and a lot of times in tournaments, like you can have them off to the side, and you don't have to carry them on you. My only thing is if you're carrying it on you, you have to realize if you get hit on that, you have to take that shot. Right? That's a hard one to identify sometimes, so just be aware of that.
Yeah.
What was that noise? Did you hit me?
We kind of covered that a little
We
bit.
covered that. Oh, double tap? Make sure
Double tap is a good idea.
If you're gonna hit him once, you might as well hit him twice. You paid for the whole thing.
Yep. And you'll get a keep them usually. So the reason I put this in there is it's good to learn how to fight against a great weapon, or to be better as a great weapon. So if I'm fighting a great weapon, like I'm firing my Squire Alistair there, and he's fighting Corn and I'm fighting weapon shield, what is my goal? My goal is to first of all not get hit. Right? Good advice in general. Second of all, it's knowing when to go and when not to go. Right? Like if I go and he's just waiting for me to gank me in the face, that's a bad time. But if I lure him into a thrust or a strike and he misses, or he's in the process of missing, that's when I should be going, right? Take your moment and go. And then close that distance as quick as I can. What I want to do is play the odds, right? I don't want to fight you as a polearm here. I want to fight you here. And once I get you there, I cannot stop. If I let you reset, the odds are back in your favor. So it's ride that Bronco until it dies.
Videos, I'm sure that stuff about melee.
Definitely check out the links. There's a lot of good, really good polearm fighters out there in other kingdoms. A lot of cool tricks you can pick up, stuff that we don't necessarily do as well, because again, there's a lot of different flavors of great weapon fighters. So watch the game tape. If you see something you like, go ahead and try it out. Try it out in practice. Try it out.
Is there one
Yeah.
technical thing I want to show, and this is thrust blocking. So often we block a thrust or strike, you go like this, right? That's you don't need to do the move like that. Just roll your wrist. So if I want to block this way, I'll take my top hand and roll it. So it projects all the way through. All I'm doing is I'm changing the cone, right? So if he does the same thing to this side, I roll the bottom wrist, right? And my guard hasn't changed. I'm still in a perfect position to do whatever I feel like. That, or whatever I feel like doing. But that roll block is something to do. What you want to avoid doing is over-exaggerating blocks. As soon as you do this, cool, you got it. Everything is over here. You have nothing to defend you on that next shot. So that is something that you want to practice. You can just get someone to thrust at you, it's like where you're just barely in touch range, and just go boom, boom, boom. That's all it is. And you want to stay really tight with your center line control. Don't let them gain that center line. Unless you decide you want them to, because you have a plan.
But have a plan.
Yeah.
Alright, so part 2 is out in the parking lot. We're gonna go, not our parking lot here, but the parking lot across the street, because it's actually relatively flat and it's empty. It's full kit, it's in an hour. If you don't have full kit, that's fine, come on out. I got some motor gauntlets, you can still do some stuff. Other thing is, the boffers, by the way, I'm gonna give these away to you. Whoever wants them, you can have them. Boffers are really good for learning how to do things at practice, because you're not concussing your target. So if you're doing a sword and shield, you can be there and you're like, okay, oh, I can't get that shot, how do I do this? So that they are giving you actual feedback. Alright? Hope to see you guys on Sunday.